when you analyze the WOD structure at regionals, the open, you notice that there's a very strong proportion of shorter WODs where there's a significant accumulation of lactic acid. So in my opinion, like training that capacity to either function with lactic acid or to push it further away, like prevent the release of lactic acid or accumulation, might actually be a game changer for athletes.
Yeah.
So to me, there are three elements to that. The first is you want to be able to delay lactic acid accumulation. The second is once lactic acid is there, like in a competitive event, you want to be able to function even though it hurts. And the third one is when you have those like rest period in the WOD, like in part of your strategy, you can clear lactic acid pretty efficiently. So these are three things that need to be mastered. So in your training, how do you approach like these three capacities? How important do you think they are, and what strategy do you use?
Well, I think one of the strategy I use actually is first of all thinking about how that building up of how the lactate buildup is made. So I can do it with something super pure, like using like a sled, an air bike, or a rower, and really recreate that amount of acid lactic I want to work with. So let's say we're gonna do like some 10-second sprint on the air bike and do a 10-second sprint on the row. I'll say 15 seconds a row because the time I'm starting to row, and a 10-second sprint on the sled. So that is like a very pure way to work, and that's also a lot of a way that you can see that athletes coming from other sports are doing. If you look at CrossFit, actually, if you go like very specific, you're never gonna have like, okay, a 10-second sprint on the air bike. You're gonna have like a real WOD. So let's say, look at this one at the regional this year. There was like a 30-calorie air bike.
Which is how long? About?
The guys were like doing it at like 40 seconds or something. Some of them
Which is a worse
seconds.
zone for lactic acid.
Yeah, for sure. And then they had to do like burpee box jump over, and then doing some med ball cleans, if I remember.
Yeah,
so that was like a 5 minutes, 6, 7 minutes workout, depending on your capacity to sustain lactic acid and your capacity to be able to work through that air bike sprint 40 seconds you did before. So if I train just with the air bike, well, my air bike sprint is going to be like wonderful after. But what comes the time to do the rest of the work, that's going to be hard. So I have to work these two. So the strategies I use first is to make the athlete adapt to each component. So I'm going to work with the air bike, I'm going to work with the rower, I'm going to work with the sled.
So separately.
Exactly, separately. And so I'm going to work with those time period, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, but I'm going to give them just enough rest so they can produce the same amount of effort and the same power.
So basically, you want each bout of effort to be just borderline where you start to have a little bit of lactic acid or not.
Exactly.
And then you rest just long enough to be able to maintain the same intensity level.
Exactly. As we're in CrossFit, if we say we're going to do an air bike sprint with 15 seconds, if we look at like the studies around this, and if we look at athletes who really want to develop only that quality, well, the rest time is going to be much higher. It's going to be like, let's say, 10 times this. So let's say we're going to be like have 3 minutes or something. With CrossFit athlete, I can go 15 seconds effort, 2 minutes rest. So yeah, there's a build-up, but they're still going to get like the 3 last set. They're going to be like in that zone where it's going to be hard to sustain, but only like the 2 or 3 last seconds. So I'm borderline, but I'm still going into that short rest.
And when you want to increase the difficulty, when you progress, for example, from week to week, would you increase the duration of the bout, or would you shorten the rest intervals?
No, I'm gonna start with I'm gonna go with some higher period of work, but I'm gonna still progress with the rest. I'm not gonna cut down the rest. The rest gonna follow the effort.
So for example, if you were like 10 seconds, 2 minutes, and gonna 15 seconds, 2 minutes and a half, for example.
Exactly, because I want to adapt to the time of work. But if I cut the rest, well, it's going to be hard for them. But what I can do also is after that cycle, let's say we do like a three-week cycle, because it's pretty hard on the body. When I'm going to come back on another cycle, then I'm going to add some specific CrossFit movement, but body weight stuff. Maybe burpee target. Let's say I'm going to go with some...
like as a complex or?
Yeah, just in it. So let's say air bike sprint 12 seconds. Go up, go out of the air bike, do like 8 burpee target as fast as possible, rest 2 minutes.
Okay.
Then go back.
Would the rest be the same as at first? For example, is it still 2 minutes, or do you rest longer because you added the
I rest
burpees?
longer because I take the amount of time they're gonna do total. So if
Okay.
it's like 20 seconds, well, my rest is gonna have to be a little bit more higher. The problem is a lot of people are gonna say, okay, I'm gonna make it worse. I'm gonna put just only 1 minute break. Let's do like 12 sets. The 5 last sets, you're just like trash.
So
you
the
know?
goal is you never want to be in a state where you are full of lactic acid.
Exactly. At first, actually, because this is like the beginning of the building up of the lactate. But when I'm gonna start to go more in CrossFit specific context, now you're gonna jump into like more longer intervals. So let's say I can go like with a sled push first, gonna get a sled push for like 30 or 40 seconds. Then I can go more CrossFit specific, go with like some, let's say 10 kipping pull-ups and 10 barbell thrusters. And that's gonna take me like a 2 minute, 30 or 3 minutes.
How long would you rest between rounds?
I'm gonna go with like maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes.
So the goal is almost full recovery between rounds.
Exactly.
So you want to be able to maintain the same performance from round to round.
And having a good rest so I can perform it.
Yeah.
But the big challenge when I'm gonna have big interval training like this is gonna be my 2 last set. Because this, even if I'm like giving them the rest, there's still a huge impact on the nervous system, depending on on what you choose as exercise, and on the muscular system also.
So and at any point in your training, do you actually train like for let's say 4-5 minutes while being in lactic acid all out, like what you would have in a competitive WOD? Do you ever program workouts where you basically just trash yourself?
Well, you know what? There's gonna have these situations, but you're not gonna go for a couple of sets. These are like 3 sets, rest like 10 minutes between, and that's your whole workout. Because that's gonna take you a lot of energy, and it's gonna take you a lot to recuperate from these workouts. So this would be like a situation when you're very CrossFit specific. So let's say you're gonna go for, think about like that 21:59 thrusters, pull-ups. Just do it once.
Which is actually the first CrossFit WOD I ever did in my life.
That's a huge challenge. Welcome in CrossFit.
It was actually it was a 24-hour CrossFit marathon. Actually, the second one I did, you programmed it.
No way.
There was a chipper you did for the 24-hour marathon at a Tonic.
Oh
CrossFit.
God, that's been
Anyway,
a long time, man.
So the first one,
Yeah.
it was okay. It's 21:59 thrusters and pull-ups. So well, now I'm like more Olympic weightlifting. So well, thrusters was like 95 and pull-ups, it's easy. Nobody in the team wanted to do it. I'm gonna do it, that's gonna be easy. So I've never done CrossFit before, so Ben Ebaya was in front of me. Those who don't know Ben Ebaya, he did a CrossFit regional, so he's a former cross-country skier, so in pretty good shape. So he's in front of me, so I'm just gonna follow his pace. So after the first like 21 thrusters, I'm actually ahead of him. I get to the pull-up, this is easy. After 2 pull-up, man, it's like I just got punched in the stomach.
Bang,
I had
that's
nothing.
it, man. Lactic acid's coming up, and then you try to survive. Yeah, so here it is. It is a good one. The super good athletes can do this in like in 2 minutes, 2 minutes 30. It's crazy fast. So they need to have like a good capacity to work with that lactate threshold, actually. So yeah, we want to work that, but it's gonna be very specific. Little time period in your cycle, a super specific way when you're going to be close to competition.
Some people actually do that all the time. They want to trash themselves. So these guys never last very long, right?
Well, you know what? There's going to have people who are like almost made for that, you know? They respond super well to that, but you know, everyone is human and you're not going to be able to do that like every week and every day. That's impossible.
I remember Charlie Francis, the former track and field coach, always said that lactic acid work is the thing that is the hardest to recover from an energy standpoint and neural standpoint. So it's really I really like what you said about like you work for a certain period of time, but then you rest long enough to be able to repeat performance so that you don't just trash yourself. Yeah,
a lot of people, I heard a lot of people when they look at that kind of training, they're like, oh, they're resting too much, you know. CrossFit is not like this. You should like always be in pain and try to survive, you know.
It's training. You're not competing in the gym. It's training to be better in competition.
Exactly, and you can see that progression with these athletes. I work with a lot with air bikes, so I really can see like the numbers, you know, the RPM, what they can sustain, the number of calories and everything, and you really see the difference between those guys who are doing like every minute on the minute, 15 calories, trying to survive, thinking they're working with building up a good capacity, sustaining lactic acid, and those guys who take like much more rest, go back on their bike, their power output is getting better, the capacity is getting better on the
and in competition with the adrenaline, they will be able to maintain it anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And the effect of going in that air bike or that stead and going back after and do the work will be so much less stressful for them, and they're gonna feel that they know that feeling, so they know what they can do after. And a lot of CrossFitters, they don't work too much with that also, so they don't know too much that feeling of going with an all-out sprint and then let's go doing pull-ups and
they never learn to pace themselves either.
Yeah, and that's another good old point also to talk about pacing.
Different capsule.
Different capsules.
All right.